There we go. Welcome to Thursday Theory, episode 33. Esha, Sammy, you can unmute yourselves. We're live now.
Welcome,
Oh,
everyone.
sorry. I ended up. I thought I was whatever. I'm sorry. I thought I was unmuting myself, and then I realized I ended up muting my headphone.
Do you know if you hadn't have said anything, nobody would have noticed?
Okay.
You kind of told on yourself. It's all right. How are you anyway?
Today is what I call the best way to explain this holiday to Europeans is suppose that Germany had won and they were celebrating Lebensraum Day in Moscow. That's today.
Yeah. There's a post we put up this morning that gives it a good name that I think. Let me just find it. National Day of Mourning. Since 1970, Native Americans have gathered at noon on Coles Hill.
1970 or 1770?
Since 1970, Native Americans have gathered at noon on Coles Hill in Plymouth to commemorate a national day of mourning on the US Thanksgiving holiday. Many Native Americans do not celebrate the arrival of the Pilgrims and other European settlers. To them, Thanksgiving Day is a reminder of the genocide of millions of people, the theft of their lands, and the relentless assault on their culture. Participants in National Day of Mourning honour Native ancestors and the struggles of Native peoples to survive today. It is a day of remembrance and a spiritual connection, as well as a protest of the racism and the oppression which Native Americans continue to experience. That's a sign that was erected by the town of Plymouth on behalf of the United American Indians of New England. We share that every year, that same image. But there you go. National Day of Mourning.
Okay, well, interestingly, that just reminded me of something. And, it actually dovetails perfectly into our topic of, maps.
Maps?
So, yeah. Because, why? Okay, so, yeah, page 3 is actually very interesting.
Okay, so hold on, let me get this up.
And if you want to see a better version of page 3, here it is.
So the topic of tonight's show is why study maps. Okay, so this is the presentation.
No, it's about maps.
You've made. Okay, how imperialism works.
Yeah.
So if you successfully took over the whole country, it's your colony. No arm, fund, and train separatists to balkanize part or the whole of the country / rinse, repeat, right?
Yeah. Okay. So, and by the way, this might be a better link. I'll send you the. Okay. That is the region that's known as the United States and Canada to modern people. By the way, go to Native Lands, the new link too. It's and all those are actual. So the first thing that they try to make it seem is like that they're not official government countries. So if you go to territory, go to the interactive one, click on Howden. It doesn't matter. Just click on one.
Hold on, I'm just loading it up. You keep talking.
What you'll see is that, for example, the Anishinaabe, it was a government that is bigger than almost the entire continent of Europe. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy goes 8 states, and the Seneca. You just look at all the nations that used to exist. They'll tell you the reason they call it tribes is that they want to make it seem like there's no centralized government. They were not civilized people, and that's why it was kind of okay. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just look over Canada, USA. It just overwhelms you, all the nations that used to exist. That they destroyed.
How did he try? Well, let's try. We can only zoom.
Yeah, and you zoom in, look at one color just so that people don't get overwhelmed.
Got a big one then. Where was it?
Yeah. You can spend hours trying to figure out what of each of these countries that were there. And that's the thing. They had a fully functional government that did everything that your European governments did. So I get offended sometimes when they get called nation. I mean, get called tribes, because that's a lie. It's So then, what is it that? So then, like, how do you go from? So the first question we have to ask is, how did we go from there to U.S. and Canada? Which we know the answer, but we still have to ask.
Yeah.
And then we have to see, well, okay, so the US and Canada were the, I guess, mostly very successful projects where they just erased the existence of all these nations. There were less successful projects, right?
In what way? What do you mean?
Like, let's see. I mean, it's not like, okay, what's the difference between why did the British commit so much genocide in the U.S. and Canada, and that they were not able to do that in India? Is it because the British are nicer people, or is it because they just couldn't?
What do you mean though? What are you saying, that they didn't?
What do you mean?
Are you saying that? I mean, are you drawing comparison to the? Are you saying they're the same, right?
They're not the same. I don't understand.
Is not. Did the imperialist class acted no different on the continent of America as they did anywhere else, right?
They have no incentive to act that way. The only thing that keeps them from acting that way is the barrel of a gun, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, and that's what people kind of. So then, what we have to often realize is this is a big part of the imperialism, because when you're like, even today, people are like, oh yeah, fight for Ukrainian nationalism, let's fight for whatever other frightening nationalism there is. And there is like a big difference between let's say these different kinds of nationalisms, right?
I mean, of course, but what I'm getting at is, I'm saying, if you're talking about the use of calling these former nations tribal to try and diminish them, right? When in effect, it's no different to say how the British acted in a lot of its other occupations, where countries just get made up on the spot because they just unite all these former tribal societies that were nomadic, or however they were when the British turned up, right? And then they just go, right, now you are this country that we've told you to be. It's the same, isn't it?
No. Sorry. No. There are two different phenomenons.
Go on.
Okay. So the first phenomenon is where there is like existing nations like the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, like that you see in the map with Canada,
right?
And then the second, and then what they do is they go and conquer, like they go and conquer that nation. They end up erasing the former identity, and then it becomes whatever they want it to be. That's the first phenomenon. The second phenomenon is I guess now you mentioned a third phenomenon. The second phenomenon, oopsie daisy, did I just do two Indias? No, I did not. Okay. This is okay. So the second phenomenon is where they end up failing to where they get bits and pieces, but they aren't able to conquer the whole country.
Right. Okay.
So then they'll create new nations like, oh, we need a free, I don't know, Khalistan. There was never a Khalistan, but they're suddenly like, what the hell? Why do we need a free Khalistan? That's because they want to balkanize that territory for imperialism. So that's a second phenomenon. You're mentioning a third phenomenon where the being under British occupation is so bad that that disparate tribes, nations, whatever they were, like before, they're like, screw that, let's unite to get these people out of our country. And that's like Algeria.
Like Russia, right? Russia,
yeah,
China.
Or Algeria, India, Vietnam, a lot of these. So those are the three different phenomenons. And the reason why we need to learn how to distinguish between these three phenomenons is obviously you want to be supporting a free Algeria and you don't want to be supporting like a free Ukraine.
Exactly.
And so one way is obviously doing historical materialism and figuring out this is not exactly about how the maps per se, but more about how these nations came to be. I can't, hold on one second. Okay.
It's the concept of the state that matters, isn't it? I think overall, the US, the liberal version of colonialism is the reason why liberals have co-opted colonialism is because it's easy.
How do you co-opt colonialism?
They've co-opted decolonialism, liberals. I mean, you know what liberals are like. They will try and talk over real solutions. Now, they want an argument about what they're doing is they're using the concept of the state. And they're applying it to, like, this argument that, like, we've got to keep going back to the person who had that piece. Well, that's not the case, is it? Because you would end up giving Europe back to the Roman, whoever. It's just illogical, isn't it, in the grand scheme of things? As opposed to, say, socialist decolonization, which takes different forms around the world. It can be like it did in Russia, where you take, and China, where, communist regional governments decide to unite together to just inherit the old empire, because, like you just said then, life is so bad under imperialism, you can all unite together and destroy imperialism in your lands. And in other cases, it could just be a solo state. But what matters is the concept of the state. And it's like you mentioned in Ukraine then, this argument over Ukraine and Russia only works to a Westerner, because this is what I'm talking about, liberals co-opting decolonization. When they use Ukraine or Taiwan, these ideas that these places are due independence just because they say it. You're applying the Western concept of the state to them and just forgetting about their historic history of why they're a state in the first place. I mean, like the Russian concept of the state compared to the Western concept of the state, compared to the Chinese concept of the state, they're all different.
It's vastly different, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You talk about the Western world. Well, the concept of Russia, in quote unquote Russia,
didn't exist.
Russia is its own world in its own right, and as China is its own.
No. I'm saying the Western world doesn't like. What I'm trying to say is that okay, actually, let's just go to the next map of like Austria-Hungary, maybe, or it's in two maps from now. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm gonna have to refresh the link, but carry on.
Okay. So what you realize is that a lot of these these are okay. Here. See, okay. So if you were to travel back in time, to anywhere in the 1900s, you'll notice something. A lot of countries now know didn't exist. Mm-hmm. There was no Hungary, there was no Austria, there was no Romania. The part of Ukraine and part of Poland belongs to Galicia. It's part of it's a protectorate of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. So how did from there, like, what happened? How did these nations come to be?
And how did they come to not be as well? Matters. I mean, look at France.
That's also an excellent question. So with Austria, okay, so when the Austria-Hungarian Empire collapsed, what I call is should we use the R or no R? The France-UK-US alliance. I either call it the Fuckus Alliance or the Fracas Alliance.
Use fracas, but we know you mean the other one.
Fracas Alliance, yeah. Basically just kind of drew lines because they did not want like other nations to go socialists, and they wanted to protect their like all their profits sort of and grain, whatever else they wanted to protect. So then when you see a free Ukraine, you'll see that the only time like Ukraine, I'm working on an article on this too, existed as a quote unquote country was around 1918 when the Allies funded this psycho named Denikin to quote unquote to basically balkanize parts of what used to be Tsarist Russia. And they also balkanized
because of the war going on, right? Slice a piece off.
Yeah. And they also funded this other dude named Pilsudski, who
it's
was
similar
also
what they did to Poland, right?
No, I'm getting to Poland. Hold on. To Pilsudski to balkanize whatever thing he got. But unfortunately what happened there is that the Bolsheviks succeeded in the Bolsheviks succeeded in basically kicking out the fakers in Ukraine with like in their part of Ukraine with like Denikin. And hold on, I'm gonna put that map. Give me 1 minute while I put up those maps. But then they did not succeed with regards to Poland with that map. And so what you see here is quote unquote I don't know what to call it, alleged kingdom of Galicia. The next map.
You have to load it up again. Bear with.
So Ukraine wasn't like isn't exactly a historical.
Ukraine didn't exist as a sovereign nation till the collapse of the.
And it never existed. Yeah,
well, 1990 or whatever, when it was declared a sovereign nation. It was part of.
Allegedly.
It was part of the Russian state, or Russia was. Again, this goes into the concept.
Poland did not exist even. I mean, yeah, but okay. So basically, there were three main kingdoms: Austria, Hungary, Russia, and Germany. Mm-hmm. In Europe.
I mean, this is what I'm saying with the concept of the state of. So Ukraine was part of Russia, right? But that doesn't mean it was part of Russia in the same way that Texas is part of the US, right? because the concept of the state is different to the Western concept of the state. Russia. I mean, especially since the Bolsheviks took over. So, I mean, we can call that the right version of history, right?
Or whatever it is.
So until it was liberated by the workers of that land, by the majority of it, we'll go with that. The Bolsheviks.
It didn't even matter, for to be honest. I mean, okay, so basically the Tsar of Russia exercised dominion, where he exercised the monopoly of force and coined currency in most of what we know as Ukraine. But then there was a small part of what we now know as Ukraine, where the Austria-Hungarian inbred Habsburgs did the same thing. Okay.
I mean, ask people think that Russia's this massive state, right? They compare it to the same as the US, but it's not, is it? It's a federal. Well, I mean, it's similar to the US and it's federal, but
it's very complicated. It's like a lot of history. They have.
I mean, there's autonomous regions. There's cities that are.
They're protectorates.
City states, exactly. There's republics.
There's treaties going back thousands of years that they're honoring that the US can't even imagine.
Exactly.
Same with China.
I mean, exactly. Same with China. That's why whenever these arguments come up about, America going, well, Tibet's not even China. Well, maybe it wasn't at a certain point, but it has been at other points. And that's the concept of China changes with history, right? Concept of most states change with history. The US has gone through the same at various points in its history, right? It's been different sizes and,
Yeah. So, okay. So what you realize is, okay, so with the free Ukraine, I don't know which are we in the Austria-Hungary map or the Galicia map? Okay, that's good.
Galicia.
Okay, let's look at okay. So with the Galicia map, what happened is that so there the Fracas Alliance decided to fund these psychos, but then the Bolsheviks were able to calm them down because they were so disgusting that most of them had to flee. So then these idiots, kind of who later became the Banderites, decided to ask Pilsudski for help in order to, free.
Just for anyone that doesn't know, this is what Serbia, etc., right?
This used to be Galicia is Ukraine.
Right, okay.
The colored part is Ukraine. What's not colored for now doesn't matter.
Oh, I see. It's not the sea. I thought it was a seaboard. It's not.
No, it's just, it doesn't matter. It's just for your colors.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I understand where it is.
This is 1914. Everything else doesn't matter.
I mean, you can tell it's fascist from its name alone.
Galicia? How?
Because it's very Roman.
No, I think they have I don't know the origin of that name. Like, I don't even know if it's Roman or what it is.
It is.
But it's an area. Okay. So then they asked for Pilsudski's help. And they then in around 1920, Poland did go up to Kiev, but then the Bolsheviks fought back, and Pilsudski dropped and ran. So then there were these weirdos who were wanting to have a free and independent Galicia. So then they had a referendum for free and independent Galicia. Oopsie daisy. The Soviets, it became Soviet Galicia.
Socialist won another election, right?
Yeah, oopsie daisy. Oh my god, Soviet Galicia. So then the Fracas Alliance, why am I calling them? I'm sorry. Fracas Alliance basically decided, okay, we're gonna have to have Poland annex it, and so then they annexed it in the 1920s. And then so it's basically the Ukrainian nationalists are people who made their own bed but don't want to lie in it, and then they're like, I'm being oppressed by, which they kind of were, but it's like you made your own bed, now you have to lie in it. But the thing is that you see this is like, it's so easy. So often I see anytime he's like, free Hong Kong, free Ukraine, free Croatia, all these like stupid liberals are suddenly like are talking about how much freedom these countries want. And there are some countries that are based on that are not colonized per se, and that you shouldn't just like blindly support their freedom, because I mean, free Ukraine means a big difference than free Algeria. And the point of today is to discuss what is how do we figure out how do we identify the free Ukraines of this world and the free Algerias of this world?
Okay, I think Sammy might have an answer to that because
Lebanon was the first word for Balkanization was Lebanonization.
Exactly. I was going to say that West Asia is an area where the British got so bored of drawing fake borders that they just drew straight lines in some places.
Like it's surreal.
How does this work though? How does this concept work in terms of the resistance in Middle East? Because there is a clear definition between the resistance movement that are for national liberation of certain countries and the fascist movements. There's a clear difference, right?
Absolutely, yeah. If you look at the resistance movement, for example, in Lebanon / Syria, compared to the fascist movements, you have the resistance movements, like almost their entire ideas and goals are surround national liberation, or like economic self-determination, anti-imperialism, anti-Western hegemony, as well as like development, like actual real development of their society, and they aim for industrialization and such, lifting out poverty. Whereas the fascists, on the other hand, they kind of like
the Maronite.
Phalange, right?
No, the fascist party is like the Phalange. They mainly focus on like recruiting from their like Maronite sects because they are historically like put into position of privilege by French colonialism and such. But like the fascist parties, their main focus is yearning basically for the good old days where it was a more regressive society under colonial rule as well. And basically, if you just look at what they do today, they just like lick the boot, deep throat it, and just like do whatever imperialist instruction they have in the region, like sabotaging their own country, begging for sanctions on their own people, etc. And basically just plunging the country further further into the imperialist grip. That's their function.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine calling for sanctions on your own country.
Oh my god, that's the entire... Oh, actually, can you find that video of Guaido? Because that was classic.
Which one?
The one from yesterday where it drops.
What happened?
Oh my god. Give me 1 second. Okay, so...
Hasn't there just been another election in Venezuela? That's like...
No.
That's like three...
It's where that logo dropped behind him when he was giving that speech.
Okay, like here. 3 elections in Venezuela now where
Guaido's been rejected. Okay.
Where the opposition have lost, but then still the US go... I mean, this is how ridiculous this is becoming and how unsustainable.
Now look at this. It's hilarious.
Right, okay, let me load this up. It's how ridiculous the imperialist is. This plan it's not working anymore, is it? I mean, how often are how many times are they going to declare that the Venezuelan election is illegal until it's not declared? At some
Who cares
point,
what they declare? No one.
I know, yeah, but how Americans have at some point have got to realize that they're being lied to. This is what I'm getting at, right? It's not that I don't care. It's not that Venezuela cares, because they obviously don't. But I don't think a lot of this propaganda serves twofold, right? The US knows that it's not making any ground in Venezuela and in other places, but they will still use these stories to the overall target of the propaganda is the Westerner, right? Because they want...
Yeah, what you don't understand is that it's an asymmetrical thing. In order for a socialist country to survive, you need people like willing to fight against, like, you need to have like your 4 friends willing to fight 40 Nazi tanks in Stalingrad all by yourself. But in order for an imperialist country to survive, you just need somebody to like not protest too much, kind of be vague about it. So because it's an asymmetrical task, the propaganda is just to stop you from being like you and your 4 friends fighting 40 tanks in Stalingrad, proverbially.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the impact on the Westerner is obviously...
No, that is the impact, is that you, even as a Westerner, in order for a socialist country, if you want to be an ally, you need to be the proverbial 4 friends fighting 40 tanks in Stalingrad, as opposed to not doing anything, right?
I mean, yeah, but what...
So all they need to do is get you to not... Because it's not about consent. Consent is only for imperialist powers.
Yes.
For anti-imperialist powers, you need more than consent. You need people who are willing to fight till the fight like they did in Vietnam, fight like they did in Stalingrad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But I mean, earlier today, was it today or this week? We've seen a piece of classic propaganda about North Korea that's been going around, right? And it's
did somebody die or something? Or
no. It's more ridiculous than that, isn't it? They're saying that North Korea banned executed somebody for watching Squid Game or something, right? And that's the problem. And then at the bottom of the tweet, it's like, according to Radio Free Asia.
Yeah, so this sounds like nothing happened, and people probably don't like the movie because it's kind of
North Korea. I'm pretty sure the North Korean government made a statement on Squid Game like about a month or 2 ago, saying like, "Oh yeah, it sums up the U.S. occupation perfectly," or something like that.
Yeah, so it's unlikely that I bet you it's because they're upset that no one like went to see the movie or bought the DVDs or whatever or is it a TV show? Whatever it is.
It's a TV show. They want more people to watch it again. But what I'm getting at is that story, as ridiculous as it sounds, it doesn't hurt North Korea in any kind of way, does it?
No.
I mean, it kind of does because it means Westerners don't support North Korea because their mind has been corrupted. Yeah,
Westerners are very they're the way they're willing to do for Cuba, they're not willing to do for North Korea.
Yeah. There's like a level, isn't there, that liberals will cut off. It's kind of okay to support Cuba, but not DPRK. Yeah. But that's due to these ridiculous stories that get spun about.
Exactly.
But what I'm trying to get at is the intention. Okay. The intention of that is to stop people from demanding socialism in the West, right? Because if you demand socialism in the West, what happens? Well, the imperialist class already know what happens. Someone like Lenin takes over and withdraws all that country's troops from whatever imperialist, and then imperialism collapses, right, in that state, and it really scares them. And that's what all this propaganda's for, in my opinion, and that's why liberals will co-opt they will even co-opt anti-imperialism to try and flood the debate with
free Hong Kong.
Well, not just free Hong Kong, but a liberal version of decolonialism, which is this continuous argument over who owns what inch of land, right? Rather than just making sure that the people who live upon it in this very present moment of time get to administer it via their self-determined will. That's what it's about. Because otherwise, like you say with these maps, otherwise then if we're going to go down that route and use that as the gauge for what decolonialism is, right, we end up with arguing for a free Transylvania movement or a free a free whatever. I know. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, but the idea is for people to understand that Romania didn't exist really until 19.
Exactly. This is when, I mean, they'll use it in both ways, won't they? Tibet's a classic example. You will see.
Yeah, Tibet was a protectorate that was united by China by the Mongols, which is the opposite of imperialism.
Well, not even that, right? Not even that, because you could forget Tibetan history. Pardon me. The way I see it is
They're not slaves.
Well, the people of Tibet voluntarily, the socialists turned up one day and were like, "Do you want us to come and bring all our military and help you liberate yourselves from the slave owner?" Oh yeah, cool. You know, we'll that's called solidarity. That's internationalism, right? And then the Tibetan people have decided to, just like all the people in the Soviet Union who decided to remain part of the Soviet Union, right? Mm-hmm. But the West will accuse that as
imperialism, or
accuse that of being exactly, as if like China is doing the same as what the US does.
Exactly. Oh my god, I just saw this map of like legitimate China, and yeah, exactly. Oh my god, I remember that. So yeah, exactly.
But then again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether Tibet's been part of China at a historic point or hasn't been part of China at a historic point. What matters is that like now the people there,
everyone
wants to be part of the People's Republic of China, right? Yeah, exactly. That's their self-determined choice, right? They're an autonomous region. I mean, the clue is in their name. It's the same as Russia.
And like I said, it's like different than what U.S. concept of a state is with like regards to autonomy. So even Tibet had for a while Tibet had the concept of one country, two policies. That they would never do that in the U.S. And that itself shows you that.
I mean, I'm not gonna make an assumption because I don't know for sure, but I'm imagining that there will be levels of administration. So to call a region autonomous, it comes with a higher level of autonomy, literally, than some of the other places in China. As in, they get to write probably all laws apart from laws that are nationwide or part of foreign policy or national security, right?
And in China, there are some places that are like have different agreements because of like the treaties that go back a long time with different areas. So the relationship within these satellite nations within the nation itself is completely different than anything a Westerner has.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you compare that to the USA, and it's illegal for any state of the US to leave, isn't it? Is it not? If a US state tried to leave, it would be Civil War II, right?
Yep.
Exactly. So how can a Westerner speak about this subject on other nations when they are quite happy to live under those rules in their own country? I don't find it. It just boggles my mind. And then you end up with movements like Free Belarus, right? And then you fascist flag or whatever.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Oh my god. The only time you freed the quote unquote Belarus was quote unquote free was 1941. Are you psycho? And they're flying that psycho SS flag. You psycho. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my god.
You'd think by the way, a little bit obvious, wouldn't they?
Yeah, my Russian teacher lives in Belarus, so yeah, he's really nice in his own way.
But it's offensive, isn't it, to even accuse Belarus of something like that when the history of Belarus through World War II is one of the most bullied nations by Nazi Germany that suffered.
Yeah, by the way,
as a nation, probably a single nation, probably suffered the worst.
I haven't seen Lukashenko's interview, but there are lots of memes coming. So maybe next time we need to go through it. Like it like reminds me.
Well, we can watch it now if you want, because we've got some time left on the show.
I know, but I haven't. I don't know. Like, do we? I haven't, because I haven't pre-watched it. We can't go through the funniest moment.
But it's only 20 minutes long, so we can pause it.
Okay. Okay. Let's do it. But we want to be careful about. It's like have you seen Maduro's interview with the Jorge Ramos, where Jorge claimed that the interview was confiscated, and it was mostly like, no, you're embarrassed because you look really stupid. My favorite is, Jorge, you know you're not a journalist.
Well, it's basically that again.
Yeah.
Basically that. Let me try and find it. Because they've not even put it on the official BBC page. It's uploaded to one of their staff I believe. Let me try and get it up.
I don't know why. I've been hyper focused since yesterday. On I don't know why, but making figuring out how to do an Elsa braid. And I finally got figured out how to do an Elsa braid.
Nice. Right. Let me.
It's really hard to make it look neat. And I don't know what that was so random. Not that anyone cares about my hair, but I can tweet out a picture later when I'm happy with the state of my Elsa braid.
You do that, right? Okay, here we go. Can you two watch the video from the link?
Oh, should we? Wait.
I've just sent it in Discord.
Okay, but how do I have to mute it or?
Well, no. On your end, you can have the sound on as long as it doesn't come from your mic, and then just whenever you want to pause it, tell me and I'll pause.
Okay, when should I watch it?
Start it now. Sammy, can you do the same?
So how do? Okay, so let's see. Okay, so he made it. Okay, now weaponizing migration. Oh my god. So how does he respond to these accusations? Is where I am. Oh no, you're ahead. Okay, I'm ahead of you. So cool.
You watch a little bit ahead and then I'll just pause it.
No, I'm ahead of you actually. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna make this smaller.
Okay.
So it's not filling up the whole screen. Hold on.
Don't worry. Is this British guy trying to speak Russian? Oh my god.
Yeah, he's like the BBC correspondent.
He's horrible at it. Okay. Anyways.
Controversial ruler of Belarus, who's been accused of stealing an election, of launching a brutal crackdown on his own people, and now of
It looks so annoying when he says that, his expressions.
So how does he respond to these accusations? Well, Mr. Lukashenko has agreed to answer my questions.
Actually,
a rare interview to Western media.
Hold on. Can you? So I don't want you to get dinged by copyrights. So maybe you should talk about something random while I find the right moment.
It's all right. I'll.
No, I got dinged for the John Oliver thing. So yeah, it's best not to show.
Дали понять, что в этом кризисе.
Let's just go for this first minute.
Что вы используете мигрантов как политическое оружие. Вот как вам такая оценка?
Okay, 225 is funny. Okay, 225. Go for 225, where he tells people what an invitation is.
Okay, hold on. Here we go.
Okay.
So hold on. Let this just play so people can hear. So the BBC basically accused him.
But you might get dinged. What's gonna happen is this entire video is gonna get dinged.
It's not uploaded by the BBC. They've not uploaded the full interview. So it's uploaded on. They must be. It's uploaded on one of their Just play this clip anyway. We'll be all right to play a clip.
Okay, because I know I've been busy and lazy about putting up the John Oliver segment on. Ay caramba, Dios mío.
Okay, let this play. Let's let people listen.
Мы останавливали мигрантов, а теперь будете сами их ловить, да?
Еще раз повторю.
По разговорам с мигрантами, да, они поняли, что Беларусь открыт сейчас.
Мы заключили с вами договор о реадмиссии. То есть, если беженцы у вас прошли через Беларусь, вы нам их возвращали, но вы должны были построить у нас или профинансировать строительство пунктов для этих беженцев. Пошла работа.
Have you seen the one where Barbara Walters interviews Assad? That is the best in the series.
Вводя санкции против Беларуси, ушли от
Oh, yeah, I love that interview.
Вы перестали.
Yeah.
So hold on. Basically, so what he said here is the Western media is trying to make out that there is a migrant crisis going on in Belarus.
There is a migrant crisis because they fucking bombed Iraq and it was not Belarus who did it. It was the West.
Yeah, sure. But what it looks like is, and here's the part that not everybody will know, because you would have to be keeping up with Belarus-EU relations constantly to know this sort of stuff. But it looks like Belarus and the EU had some policy in place, an agreement in place that because of the flow of migrants into the EU from, like Esha said, the wars in the Middle East, that Belarus had agreed to hold back. Stem the flow a little bit into Germany, but only if the EU were to pay for it, right?
Yeah, but then Belarus just like stopped. Okay, so there's another story. Poland, Lithuania, all those like EU countries, all of them under a UN treaty. Like it's like every country like that. Like there's a lot, like 70 or 80, even 90 countries that have agreed to accept so many refugees. Like so, maybe one country might accept 10, other 15. But Poland and Lithuania and whatever other country borders Belarus had agreed to it. But then a month ago, all these like random Iraqis ended up dead in the border, and so now Poland. And then recently, like the EU added sanctions. So then Belarusian soldiers just are like, okay, we don't care whoever comes in and out of the border. Just enjoy yourselves and just kind of. Stop.
Well,
I mean, it's not like
it says here, look, because of the sanctions that got placed on Belarus from the EU, which meant that this deal could not be kept, which was that the EU would finance their side of the bargain, right? The manufacture of these migrant living quarters on the Belarusian side, right? But sanctions meant that this money could not be given because obviously that would be illegal. So again,
they're letting them go to Poland, which is the most humane thing, as opposed to what the U.S. would be doing, which is like putting them in like migrant detention facilities.
Well, yes, let's just get to that. Hold on, I'm just going to let it play a little bit more. Hold this thought.
Эти пункты пропуска для беженцев. И тогда я сказал, ребята, санкции плюс ваш отказ от работы с беженцами, иммигрантами, до свидания. Почему я должен их задерживать на границе, когда они идут в Великобританию, в Германию? Извините мне, создавать тут...
There we go. That's the line I wanted. I'm not going to create holding pens or camps for these refugees. I was watching this interview earlier, and when he said that, I thought, I mean, the EU and the West obviously want him to do that. So then they can turn around and be like, look, Belarus is making camps for migrants. The game is obvious, right?
Yeah. So he's not doing that, which is, and then he also put up showers and like breakfast facilities too at the border. But the thing is that Poland, okay, so the problem is that the EU is breaking up at the seams, and Poland has a lot of like fascists who don't want these refugees that they already agreed to a long time ago. So now, the thing is that the EU is looking for an excuse to repudiate the agreement, but they can't. And for me, the best thing was like when the Russian foreign minister is like, well, 2,000 Polish troops went in and invaded Iraq, so shouldn't just Poland accept just at least 2,000 refugees from Iraq, because you guys did help destroy it, and that is 100% the truth. I don't know what else to say, and I hate European Union people.
Well, it's just it's an example, isn't it, of how the dominoes will get placed to be knocked down in a specific order. I mean, it's been framed as if Belarus is up to no good, isn't it? But basically all that's happening is, like he said then,
Poland.
Well, it's not Poland. What it is these people are trying to get to the EU. They're trying to get to Germany, France, the UK. They're not trying to stay in Poland. They're trying to go through Poland. As the same that they've just done to Belarus, right? They're trying to go through Belarus. Like he said, why would I stop them? Why would I stop? I mean, what kind of logic is it that, like, if you were stopped saying, if I'm trying to get to Sammy's house, right, and you just stopped me on the way, I should put a fence around me. Who's the bad person? Do you get what I mean? Why would Belarus stop them?
I agree, totally. They shouldn't. But
this idea that they're being pushed there by Belarus is kind of
utter nonsense.
стойниками
Let's just let it play on a little
для
bit.
этих беженцев.
Oh wait, what if you get?
В чем
I
был
don't know.
смысл?
That's all right.
Поэтому
Don't
я и
worry.
сказал, я
We've
не
not
буду
got a
их
warning.
задерживать на границе,
Okay,
держать их
I
на
got-
границе.
yeah,
Повторяю, и впредь не буду, если они
It
будут
tells you
идти
on the
через
streamer end.
Потому что они идут не ко мне, а к вам. Вот в чем был смысл. Но я их
forgot what I
сюда
was thinking
не
about.
звал. И
I mean,
я
look,
не
he
хочу,
didn't invite
если
them.
уж откровенно говорить, чтобы они шли через Беларусь.
Мы работали на границе, мы общались с мигрантами. Я хочу вам говорить то, что они нам говорили. Последние дни говорили, белорусский солдат взял забор.
Некоторые. И
Here's a good
некоторые.
some people.
И следуя вашей концепции, BBC, как вы это подаете все, ну это везде у вас некоторые и кто-то, а кто-то один сказал, что резали проволоку.
Вы мне не верите?
Не, абсолютно нет.
So you don't believe me? Absolutely not.
Я верю в факты. Так вы мне скажите, где резали?
That's
Can you
bad.
read
Кто
this?
резал? И назовите
I believe
имя этого
facts.
солдата. А вот так
Okay,
говорить,
okay, I'm gonna grab this video because this has to be memed.
кто-то там
Oh my god, this is the best thing.
позвонил, кто-то в деревне
Oh my god,
сказал,
like
ну,
literally,
слушай,
this is like
Alexander
I believe,
Grigorьевич,
yeah,
я не
this
думаю,
is what
что
everybody should say to the BBC journalist. Like, do you believe me? Absolutely not. I believe
Который
facts.
мигрант, который мне это сказал, спросил, извините,
so
как вас
beautiful.
зовут у солдата, да, в этот момент. Но я хочу
gets
сказать,
better.
что еще несколько
Let's
они
move
не
on a
хотят
little bit.
домой.
одного заявления и очень быстро, в отличие от вас. Мы этим в том, что мы помогаем мигрантам,
Мигранты нам говорили, вы,
что они шли в Германию, что они хотят воссоединиться с семьями.
я знаю, что вы обсудили
Assad.
это. О чем вы говорили?
I still have to say of these interviews, Assad's the best.
А остаток
I'm sorry.
вас будет
And then he starts-
Чего вас это волнует?
Yeah,
Господин
I'm here.
президент,
Here we go.
Президент или
Here's a question
Интересно,
that's
как-
loaded. How did Angela Merkel address you? As 'cause, for anybody who doesn't know, the US, EU, and UK don't recognise Lukashenko's
Allegedly.
as the president. No, I mean they don't recognise him. Not allegedly,
yeah.
they don't.
They don't
Anyway,
because of like the female Guaido. Matt likes to call her Ivana Gvidovskaya.
so how did Angela Merkel address you as Mr. President? He's trying to write a bit of propaganda here. Just listen to this response.
как господин президент или господин
Mr. Lukashenko, Alexander Grigoriev, which is he is referring to him
господин
as.
президент,
Which is his name?
он же господин Лукашенко.
Это интересно,
Саша.
и это важно.
Для меня никакого не имеет
Потому что,
значения.
как вы знаете, вас в Евросоюзе не признают легитимным президентом.
А
Поэтому
меня
интересно,
это...
как она.
Слушайте, а мне наплевать
So
на
much
то,
to do.
что в Евросоюзе вы думаете
It's a little
о
of me.
президенте Беларуси. Меня избирал не Евросоюз. Вы меня не признаете четверть века. Вы просто Стив не в курсе дела, наверное. Четверть века меня не признают
They haven't
Евросоюз.
recognized me as president for a quarter of a
Как
century,
это
so what?
прошел?
Слушайте, и меня избирает белорусский народ, поэтому мне важно...
This is exactly what Assad did. So Assad, did he? This was good for preparation if he did watch that Assad
Он
video.
мне не важен
Is the question of
That
legit?
is like,
Is the question
a lot
of?
more subtle?
He said to him, "Is that no? Assad's just a little bit more polite. Lukashenko just speaks like he's like a mine boss, or something like the boss of it. Not a mine boss, a mine union boss." Right?
Assad's great. Yeah, Assad has a nice. Well, he was. Well, I don't 100%. I need to look at the Russian translation because I am not 100% they're doing it right. But Lukashenko doesn't speak more like a boss. He's like the worst thing. He speaks like a nuanced cock. If that makes sense. Where he's like says something and then he like adds 3 nuances to it, and then you're like, no, that's not how you speak to the West. No nuance cockery.
Because the whole world has seen what you're really like. You saw it on the border. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? With the same as failures in Venezuela, Hong Kong, etc., etc. Everybody saw the violence that was going on. You can't hide it. The internet means that it can't be hidden. Everybody saw you setting people on fire, etc., etc.
Yeah. Oh my god.
These are the ways that you distinguish between whether a movement is of the free Ukraine sort, or of the free the workers sort, right? That's the difference. Popular mass movements don't go around setting people on fire, whereas ISIS sort of fascists do.
Oh yeah, ISIS did a lot of weird things.
Отвечаю на ваш вопрос. Вы говорите, толпы вышли и прочее. Стив.
I mean, this point as well that he makes, there were protests, there were pro, I'm not going to say government, because I think that plays into the West idea that it's just government, supporters of government versus supporters not of government. It's not, is it?
No, but she wanted to like...
there were pro-Belarusian protests, as in, you know, people who were anti-imperialists, anti-colour revolutionary protests in Belarus. At the time of this election, the Western media didn't show them. If they're not going to show them, then they can perfectly frame questions like, we didn't see any pro-Belarusian protesters out on the street. Well, because you didn't go and film them.
If you're inside of Belarus, it's kind of weird to be pro. You have the state. You're not going to be protesting on...
Exactly. And also this idea that, like, just because some people who
white man didn't see it.
No, this idea that just because some protests who are anti-government happened, that your entire state should be sort of thrown over, collapsed instantly and carved up by some imperialist corporations is ridiculous. Because just like in the UK, whenever the Conservative Party win, there are mass protests from Labour supporters the day after demanding that the Tory government step down. Mm-hmm. Does the Tory government step down? No, it doesn't. Does it negotiate with them, the protesters, to come? No, it doesn't. When Trump won in America, there was Democrats out protesting, demanding that the White House was dismantled. Did the White House come out and negotiate with them? No, it didn't. So why do Westerners expect that, like, just because some people came out on the streets and were like, I'm anti-leader of the country, means that the country should be collapsed? It's ridiculous, isn't it? Now, if that was the case,
Britain should be collapsed 1,000 years ago.
Well, not just that. That's the difference between a legitimate movement and a fake one, isn't it? Because they're not interested. They're not interested in just changing the Belarusian government. What they're talking about really is they want to change the government. That's only the first step, because the imperialist wants access to the economy. It doesn't care about the government really. It just wants access, to that nation's control of its money and its resources. Right? It does that through setting up a comprador government that they can just pay off, like Nestle or whatever mining company.
Myanmar, thousands of examples of the comprador governments in this world.
Exactly.
And that's why you have child slaves, opposed to children going to school because of these And what people don't realize is the worst thing, like the most profitable thing for, like, quote unquote a dictator to do is to, like, sell out to the West. And so if he's not doing that, it shows that, like, you know what I mean? So he can't be as corrupt as the West claims he is.
Well, yeah, exactly. Has there been any dictators who aren't being financed by some corporation? There hasn't, has there? I mean, what does that tell you? That's the difference, isn't it, in what you set out to do? It's not about the map. It doesn't matter about the map, right? The borders of Belarus could change at any point, right? What matters is what people the people who live on that land consider themselves to be, right? And whether they want to be part of Belarus or not. It's the same with Crimea, right? The Crimea question is a good one for this. The Western media will frame it as if Russia invaded it or annexed it, they call it, but it didn't, did it? People in Crimea voted to rejoin their historic. They switched from one concept of the state, which was how they were before as part of the West when Ukraine. I mean, I know Ukraine had a pro-Russian government. I guess the only thing that was keeping them as being pro-West was that pro-Russian government. But as soon as Ukraine switched to being out and out West, as it is now, the people in Crimea voted to rejoin their historic state of Russia.
Wait, hold on. Wait, one second. I have to mention one more thing. The pro-West government literally cut off their water, so people in Crimea did not have water when they voted too. Okay.
Exactly, but it's not just things like that, but all those sort of things sum up to why somebody wouldn't want to live under somebody else, right? But Crimea's position, I mean, you can search this up on like Wikipedia if you want to just do surface level research. Crimea has taken up its place that it used to be, which was a republic of the state of Russia, right? Like I said earlier, the concept of the state of Russia is different to the concept of what the United States is, right? You can't compare the two. Basically, you have to look at it. I mean, the way I look at it in my head is almost as if Crimea went from living as part of one world to a completely other world, right? That Russia in itself is a completely different world to the West, which is a completely different world to China, right? Etc. etc. And I think it's just you've got to just you've got to work out the identifiers in this in these different struggles. And I think this BBC interview, I mean, we'll not play anymore. But
you're gonna get dinged.
That BBC interview is, and like Assad's interviews, etc. The confidence that these politicians have is because they know they've got support of their people, right?
Well, with Assad, I have to show you that. I'll find it once. He went into this like fake butchery. No, what is the place where they make kebabs? Not butchery. I don't know. I'm sorry.
A kebab shop.
Just a kebab shop.
Yeah. Anyways, it was like a very small one. Only him and his wife fit. And the cook in that place had a humongous knife in which he cut off this piece of lamb. No Western president would ever be like that close to a butcher's knife, and that's how much he trusts, how much he feels safe, because that's how much popular support he has. He just like walks on the street, sometimes drives in random places, comes
was
to
that in Hama, or was that in the famous Hamidiyya popular market?
The popular market.
Oh yeah, that was in Damascus. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I just remember that clip, and it's like. You'll never ever see the president of the United States will not even stop at a Starbucks without like having like I don't know, like national security, like social whoever, like them like running a sweep and all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean?
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I remember with I think it was Boris Johnson at the time. This guy was going for a run in public, and he just happened to cross paths with like Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, and the poor guy, they battered the guy when he passed by.
Oh my god.
Yeah, well, not battered, but like
cricket bat.
Briefly detained him or something because he was going for a run.
That is insane. Exactly, and that just shows you like the difference in the popular support. Like, I can never, like, no president of the United States can do what Assad did.
Yeah.
There's always like hints in the photographs as well. New Atlas had a video on the protests. He's got loads of coverage on what's going on in Thailand, right? Because he lives in Thailand. That's what he knows. But he's got a video up of some recent like sort of manufactured events. Popular movements don't need to manufacture events for news cameras, right? Things happen like spontaneously, or
no. Well, nothing happens spontaneously, but they're not manufactured. Like,
they're not ringing up cameras and being like,
they don't care about the cameras
here.
per se.
Exactly, that's what I'm getting at. They're not manufactured
by the way,
But anyway, the event is that like some police and some protesters were the classic story that the US used, because they know that all Americans sort of have like a poor opinion on police and law enforcement. So it's an easy one, isn't it, for the US to make, is that police are acting heavy-handed. which is easy to manufacture as well, because you just get the police and protesters to fight, right, and then only show one side of it. Now that's exactly what. Go on.
With the Belarusian protesters, they were trained on that, so they actually backed away from the protesters, as to like there's like not a single shot they had, because it was really funny seeing them like back away from the protest. Like the protesters wanted to be like, the police are running over us, and then they actually reversed it, and then it's like but yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But then they actually ended up like beating a police officer to death. And usually police officers in Thailand come from like really poor families, and it's just like it's not the same as the West. You know what I mean? It's horrible. Well, it's like a horrible thing to do.
Well, it's a different act as well, isn't it? Because what they're trying to do is dismantle the state, right? You've seen it in Euromaidan as well, the lynching, the flogging, you know, getting police to like bow down in front of Nazis and apologize. They were doing it in Hong Kong as well, weren't they? Demanding that police apologized for apparent brutality that nobody's seen, and just
and in Bolivia too, they were making
harassing their families, all sorts.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening in the Middle East, Sammy? In the recent sort of imperialist the Arab Spring, were they doing that?
I don't know.
I mean, they were definitely carrying out color revolution, but they weren't demanding like people bow down to like fascist figures or whatever. Actually, yes, I take it back what I said. Yes, that was happening, especially in Syria, like because sectarian violence and hatred was escalated to such a degree that even like religious minority people were evacuated from their homes. Well, not evacuated from their homes, but like kicked out of their homes essentially. There was this one case, the very first martyr of the color revolution in Syria was a Shiite man, a Shiite vegetable seller, who was basically lynched in the street in Syria, basically by a mob of ISIS fascists, pretty much. And that was like on the very first or second day of like when the color revolution really started moving on in Syria in 2011. I can't recall his name at the moment, unfortunately.
It's all right. Well, we'll find out. I mean, they did the same in Ukraine, isn't there? There's
the Maidan massacre.
There's not just that. I mean, just the way that the move. I mean, look, the Bolshevik Revolution is completely different when you compare what they did to what these colour revolutionists do, right? The Bolsheviks built a state from like nothing in a week, and the colour revolutionists dismantle a state in like a week. You know, through using fascist thugs to just, beat, flog. In Ukraine, they were, and they're similar in Hong Kong. You know, attack union buildings and
yes, all the same tech.
Because that's how do you dismantle the state and seize state power without any resistance? We got to dismantle all the sort of workers. Any way that workers would be able to resist that, right? Especially as a fascist.
Even in Myanmar, they're like basically like bombing schools and so forth.
Exactly. I mean, it's the same in Ukraine when I'm talking about the flogging of police. Well, the order to that is to try and dismantle the police, because once you dismantle the police, then you just build your own fascist police afterwards, don't you? It's the same as what Hitler did. They were
already built by the U.S. like since they were training them since like for God knows how long.
This thing goes in revolutions, like they get the state to be dismantled basically, or they call for like early elections, or they call for immediate elections, and then the people who had popular support, they'll get sidelined or even banned from these new elections, and
then they'll bomb the ballot boxes and like intimidate people.
Yeah, these Western puppets will just be brought to the podium and be the only options essentially for. Essentially, they'll be forced onto the country.
Yeah, and is that what happened in a lot of the Arab Spring?
I can tell you, like, with CC, yes, because Morsi was forced out, and yeah.
In fact, Morsi was kind of the case where he was forced onto the country because like the Muslim Brotherhood was already in a position to take power after like the Arab Spring in most Arab countries, including in Syria. And Morsi was actually in the case of Egypt, actually, the protests were taking a pretty progressive turn. Even Israel was expressing its concern about them. However, like in the end, Morsi was pretty much the only option on the table, along with one of Mubarak's right-hand men. So, like in a nutshell, the two bad apples were just forced onto the country. Morsi won. He was Muslim Brotherhood, and he was by no means good, actually. He sent a letter to Shimon Peres saying, "Dear my friend Peres," so he's not exactly a proponent of the Palestinian cause. And also, famously, he proclaimed in a stadium that he would go to war with Syria.
Why would he
aid the quote-unquote Syrian revolution. And that's apparently what some section of the Egyptian comprador class didn't exactly like, which is where Sisi came from.
Okay. That makes sense. But I do know there was a coup where Morsi was forced out of, and then he's, So, I was just talking about that.
Well, they'll set up a government and then collapse that, and then, or they'll let fascists take power. They'll let fascists set up a government, and then they'll slowly turn that fascist government into like a liberal one and clear all the fascists out.
Not just that. It's that they don't want they almost don't want a stable government at all. They want the country in a perpetual state of chaos, like Iraq until this day is. Just
I think that counts though. I think when that happens, that happens, and it also doesn't happen. The factor is how useful that country is to the imperialist, though, isn't it? Because in terms of Ukraine, they used fascists to dismantle the Ukraine that existed at that time, the pro-Russian one. They had a pro-Russian president. One, when we say pro-Russian, one that's not racist towards Russia, right?
Yeah, one who's not like a psycho. Yeah,
exactly. But that state was dismantled and tossed into the dustbin of history, never to be returned, by a fascist government, which then has been, slowly after the last 10 years, liberalised.
Not too much, I mean...
Well, not too much, because obviously there's not much in terms of difference between out-and-out fascist and right-wing. But what I'm saying is, you don't... The imperialist... Hold on, Ash. The imperialist has learnt from World War II that it's probably not the best idea to let the fascist government remain in power, because it gets ideas of grandeur like Hitler, and then ends up overextending itself or picking on an enemy that it can't beat, like the USSR, right? And then all of a sudden the imperialist slash capitalist is back to square one and have lost all that investment that they put into building that country as it is. And it's not just the Ukraine that this has gone through. The EU is the same. It's almost like the continuation of Nazi Germany, right? But with a liberal flavor. This is flavour liberal now, because the fascism is hidden. It's not jackboot Nazi fascism, white full-on race supremacy sort of stuff. But it's like thinly veiled liberalism instead, because the imperialist class know that neoliberalism is more sustainable than fascism. Now, depending on how useful that country is to the imperial core, if it's a country like, if it's a country in Europe, like, they're going to keep it sort of on that liberal path, because...
if they can.
Well, I'm talking about the UK, France, Germany, all these countries. It's best to keep them liberal, because then it makes Westerners feel like they are somehow progressive, right? You can dress up progressivism in those places, but in other places where the US doesn't so much care about the citizens of that place, they can allow fascism to stay around a lot longer, such as places like Iraq, because the US doesn't want fascists running around in Germany beheading people anymore, because they've tried that once and it failed, right? But in Iraq they don't care, because they know that people living under the imperial core can't see it, / they're a bit disassociated from it through living in a I mean, it seems far-fetched, doesn't it? Because that's how you've been propagandized to see the other side of the world. Terms like I mean, even these divisions like the Third World, although that like they've been invented by Chairman Mao to describe the hierarchy of the world, but the West uses it. The West uses that term to try and make a division, doesn't it?
Well, no, the West has screwed. No, I disagree with you. I think Third World means that you have been raped and murdered and stolen everything, like by the likes of the West for 500 years.
Of course, that's Mao. That's what Mao and the non-aligned movement sort of used. That's how they invented the term, isn't it? But what I'm saying is, when the West uses the term Third World, they want to disassociate a Westerner from the struggles of an African, right? Because they don't want a Westerner to realise that the reason why Africans are having to walk 10 miles to get water is because of imperialism, right?
Deindustrialization.
Exactly, imperialism, basically, right? And they don't want a Westerner to have solidarity with that African and go, hold on a minute, the people who have done it to them are my rulers, right? And I'm not going to accept that anymore. They don't want that to happen, so they'll use terms like Third World to disassociate themselves from that, because they need Westerners to, in the imperial core, to feel like they are somewhat progressive and not as bad. This is why fascism doesn't work in the imperial core, because they tried that with Nazi Germany. It got a little bit too big for its boots, didn't it? Whereas fascism in quote unquote a backwards country like one of the colonies that's bullied, they can just leave that to exist, and like you say, have these dictators that are ruling these places with an iron fist on behalf of Nestle, etc., or whatever, right? There's a difference in terms of how a country gets treated once it becomes a comprador state. And I think because Ukraine is on the cusp of Europe, a fascist government wasn't going to work, was it? If you want to, an out and out right sector government, right, isn't going to work if you want to convince Germans, who are now all liberal, right, and progressive. It's not going to convince them that the Ukraine can join the EU. But if you start dressing up those fascists as liberals and sort of replacing them with moderates who are also compradors still, then you can normalise that state is now progressive. And it also works twofold, doesn't it? Because you can use this idea that now the place is free and not authoritarian, right? The West has all these different layers that it can apply to a country depending on what mood it's in, basically.
Exactly.
But that's the difference, Sammy, with Iraq and the Ukraine, right? The US can leave places like Iraq, which are very distant in the minds of a Westerner, or have these Orientalist stereotypical view. A Westerner to Iraq, they think of like a mud house that's 1 story tall, right? They don't think that Baghdad is actually a city. Baghdad was so beautiful before it was destroyed. Exactly.
I mean, and the funny thing is that Baghdad has been a city for thousands of years longer than anything in the West.
Exactly, and that's what I'm talking about when the West uses terms like Third World, or to try and make bad Iraq seem backwards, when in reality the place is however many times long. The US is only 200 years. It's like one of the newest.
Iraq is where you had civilization begin. Yeah, with Iraq, Iraq. Without Iraq, there would be no civilization. So it's like,
But because it's on the other side of the fence, so to speak, to a Westerner, they can just leave Iraqis to suffer living under ISIS or whatever. Because not only are Westerners not going to do anything about it, it makes
Westerners probably funding ISIS.
Well, there's that, but it makes the imperialist concept of the state to me is, well, to anyone really, it's all about how the imperialists see the state, right? It's a means to profit. They're not interested in any sort of idea about like, oh well, this is a distinct set of peoples with culture, right? They don't give a fuck about Iraqi culture or whatever. They just want to maintain, hegemony over the economy so they can extract all the oil out of Iraq, the cheapest and the easiest. And the best way to do that is to have like ISIS just guard your oil field and fuck everybody else. That's the difference, isn't it? That's why they can allow, but they can't get away with that in Ukraine because it's right on the doorstep of the imperial cause. So what they've got to do is use those people to dismantle the former state of the Ukraine and then build up a new one. Now, if we're going to tie this into the topic of the show, and if we're going to talk about decolonization, then surely liberals in the West should be arguing for Ukraine to be reversed to its previous
Land
state.
it back.
Exactly. Reversed to its previous state, because it's just been stolen by a bunch of fascists. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying there's a liberal version of this that is utterly pointless, because of course not. No, Ukraine should be given back to Ukrainians and not be used as a puppet, and it should be self-determined by Ukrainians, right? Whether that's via land reform or political reform, however it takes its shape. Generally, it looks to me like that takes place on an anti-capitalist socialist format, which to me would make sense because it's the imperialist capitalists who put up such a fight against this idea. I wonder why, right?
Yeah.
Why do they do all this playing around with idiots like Juan Guaido, right?
Juan Guaido, yep.
Juan.
Exactly.
Three elections in Venezuela. I want people to realise that. There's been at least three. I mean, they've been meddling in Venezuela for a long time, but at least since the heat up of it, 3 elections now that Maduro's defended. And
exactly.
The US still goes, no, that's an illegal election. Try
Yeah,
again.
since Hugo Chavez died almost 8 years ago now, right?
Yes, exactly. Try again. No, that was the wrong answer. Try again. That's what they do. Anyway.
Yeah, they keep trying.
Anyone got anything else they want to add to the show? Because we kind of, I think
stay tuned for a big project that's coming out of Historically, where we talk about, you'll just see. And that's about it. Please subscribe. Go to historically.substack.com. Also, please subscribe to MangoPress. It costs less than a cricket match anywhere in the world.
I bet that's not true. I bet getting into a cricket match in like India is like 50 pence or whatever.
No, India is the most expensive because cricket's super popular in India.
True that. Right, Sammy, what were you going to say?
Oh, I just said I'm good.
You're good. Right, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Tom didn't wake up, did he? Disappointing.
No, he didn't. I tried ringing him like 5 times. Twice he hung up on me.
Maybe his girlfriend. Maybe you should get his girlfriend's number. Maybe she can help crack the whip.
Oh no, she's not his girlfriend yet. Yeah, it's last first date.
Whoa.
What?
Calm down. We're still live on the air, right? You're spilling all Tom's inner secrets.
Okay. It's not a. Oh,
anyway,
wait.
people in the chat. People in the chat.
Sorry. Was this? I totally forgot. Like, did we discuss this? Not. Oh, fuck. Okay, sorry.
She's taller than him.
Okay, Sammy's just dropped the bomb. Right, okay, moving on. Don't forget, check out that Lukashenko interview with the BBC. It is very funny. It's only like 20 minutes long. The guy
and meme it for me.
Exactly. The guy schools him for 25 minutes. You can watch that on our feed. Just click on Twitter, scroll down our page a bit until you see it. Follow the links. Also, people in the chat and Escher and everybody's been talking about the other 2 interviews in this show. Check out the one with Maduro. That's the famous you're not a journalist one.
Yeah. And then the Assad one is good.
Yeah, the Assad one also. And there are many more. I think I like to just add at the end of the show, people online like to make this idea that just because like you are, I'd say, you're not supporting Lukashenko, right?
I am supporting him because he's kept the country.
Well, true, right? But what I'm saying is, there's this argument, isn't there, about like if you as an anti-imperialist say I support Lukashenko, you're somehow claiming that Belarus is some sort of socialist paradise, and
no, it's not. But what we do know is that in Belarus there is no starvation or food crisis in Ukraine. At least half the 40% are food insecure, despite the fact that wheat is the number one export of Ukraine.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
I mean, even that sort of stuff's irrelevant. What matters is the self.
No, it's relevant.
It is relevant. Of course it's relevant. But what I'm saying about is the fundamental, right? Is that these places should be self-determined, right? And through self-determination comes, mastering their own destiny, as in like what you said, food security and stuff. So, and that is the difference, isn't it, between spotting a manufactured, quote-unquote, capitalist version of the state and a true state like China or Russia or any of the other self-determined nations of the world. Not all of them are socialist, right? But a lot of them are determining their own destiny. That is of no business of anybody else but the people who live within that country.
Yeah, especially not anyone of the West.
Exactly. I think that's what it comes down to. And we'll see, right? Check out all that stuff. We'll be back on next Friday with a podcast, and Tom will be there. So don't worry about that. Don't forget, follow all our stuff. Patreon, you can press membership below. Follow us on TikTok. I don't know if Harrison's got us unbanned.
Follow my 2 accounts on TikTok too. But I've been kind of lazy this week because I've been just exhausted.
Yes. All right. Cool. Well, there we go. That's the end of the show. Thanks, Esh. We'll be back in 2 weeks with you. And Matt was supposed to join us tonight, but
I didn't know that. If I would have called him,
I did try reaching out to him before the show, but we started.
Just let me know if you want Matt to join us. Just tell me beforehand, and I'll make him join us.
I was gonna say get him on next week. Let this go on. What were we gonna say?
2 weeks from
2 weeks from now, yeah.
Nothing. So I bought victimsofcommunism.us, and it's going to be a parody site. And I like that. I don't know how to make, there's a really nice graphic, and I just need like a front graphic that you make that's like makes fun of the victims, the main victims of communism.
All right, cool. We'll look out for that, Esh. Sammy,
no, can you know? I want you to make it for me.
Wait, I've got to end the show first. So
sorry.
Just let this music play out, and there you go. We'll see you later.